Welcome back to episode 2 of Japanese Gems, or Left in Japan, or Japanese. This is where we take a look at games only released in Japan and do not have any English whatsoever. Yes, we want to go as niche as possible. It's reverse YouTube algorithmology where we make stuff that nobody wants to watch and then maybe, I don't know, YouTube will actually like us. After the first episode, I asked you which games you would like to see next, and the clear winner with a massive 2 votes was Crayon Shin-chan to Hakase no Natsuyasumi Owaranai Nanokakan no Tabi. Yeah, we're gonna have to cut that down. We're going to tell you what it's all about, how to play it, and if it is worth a cheeky import even if you're an idiot like me and don't know any Japanese apart from bonjour. Let's take a look at this heartwarming slice of summer life. Right, so for the sake of convenience as well as my personal sanity, Miguel did me a favor and translated the title and added a bit of flair to it and called it Shin-chan's never-ending summer vacation. It's entirely possible that the game will get a completely different title if or when it gets localized, but if you ask me, that's got a nice ring to it. Now as for the game itself, you might be familiar with a slightly obscure 3DS game called Attack of the Friday Monsters, A Tokyo Tale. It was a unique and fairly niche adventure game filled with charm and personality, even if its length wasn't the most impressive. That game was more or less meant to be a spin-off of a series that never left Japan called Boku no Natsuyasumi. This series has a really strong cult following over there, likely due to how well it managed to capture that fleeting nostalgic feeling of a summer vacation from the point of view of a kid. Obviously they must not have cicadas in Japan, otherwise the series would be mostly constant noises of Sorry, I'm just slightly bitter that I have to constantly time my recordings around their, shall we say, noisy moments. They don't care like when I need to record audio. If you don't know what a cicada is, well, firstly, you should play more Pokemon, but also they are possibly the most disgusting creatures on Earth, and I say that as an animal lover. Anyways, insect tangents aside, unfortunately this series was seemingly put into a deep sleep after the 4th entry. Well, that is until now. 12 years later, the original developer Millennium Kitchen finally released the much anticipated next entry in the series, or at least the closest thing that we may ever get. Even if it is a spin-off, Shin-chan's never-ending summer vacation most definitely feels like a continuation of the Bokunatsu series, but since this is a licensed game, I think it might be a good idea to give a brief explanation of what Shin-chan is all about. Originally published as a manga series and then adapted into an anime with over 1,000 episodes, Shin-chan has always been a massively popular franchise in Japan. It tells the story of the mischievous Shinsuke Nohara, whose specialty is being a knob to his parents, as well as trying to woo all the beautiful ladies he meets. He's 5 years old, ladies and gentlemen. As time went on, the series slightly toned down some of its bolder jokes, but the charm never really left. The question is, can this game live up to the legacy of these two beloved series? Let's start with the story. The story begins with Shin-chan, Shin-chan's mother, and the family dog Shiro traveling to Kumamoto, where Shin-chan's dad is currently on a business trip. After meeting with him, they head towards the countryside town of Aso. Yes, Aso. I wonder who the mayor of Aso town is. Probably me. Here they plan to spend a week with the Hinayama family, where a friend of his mother lives. However, just before getting on a train, they are stopped by a dubious-looking scientist that gifts them his latest invention, a camera, so that Shin-chan can take a bunch of pictures of girls as... Oh no, wait, that's the wrong game. The camera's main peculiarity is that the pictures that it takes will turn into drawings. Shin-chan and his family then decide to accept the camera and get a picture taken as a commemoration. However, immediately after the scientist takes the photo, a weird smoke comes out of it. Something clearly feels off when Shin-chan suddenly wakes up on a bench nearby, not grasping exactly what happened the moment the picture was taken. Nevertheless, they jump on the train and they arrive at Aso, where the Hinayama family welcomes them. It then turns out that the father of the family owns a local small newspaper company that currently isn't doing so well. Hard times. Over there, Shin-chan will meet a young college student called Yoshiko, who's working as a part-timer. She promises Shin-chan that if he brings the company back on track, she will have a date with him. and thus Shin-chan commences the life or death mission to bring forth glory to this modest enterprise so that his insatiable lust for affection may once be satisfied. But of course things aren't as simple as that, because just the day after, a giant dinosaur appears out of nowhere, by the hand of no one else but the same mad scientist that Shin-chan's family previously met. Except this time he's now claiming he has invented a time machine. With such an unparalleled event in front of their eyes, the town reacts with complete and utter disregard and proceed to go about their daily lives. They really don't give a crap about it, which I think is great. They even give the dinosaur a nickname. Like, have you ever wanted to be on vacation so much that not even a living dinosaur rampaging around could change your plans? This is being determined to enjoy yourself. It reminds me of my family holidays as a kid. Yeah, it's pissing down with torrential rain, and yeah, you're stuck in a tiny caravan in the middle of Mablethorpe of all miserable places on this earth, but my god, my mother was determined that we were definitely 100% having a spiffing holiday, playing Ludo for the 12th time that day. And that's more or less what this story is about. Okay, not playing Ludo in a caravan in Mablethorpe, the thing before that. I'm obviously leaving out some important events, but truth be told, it's not exactly the most complex narrative out there. It is, however, really easy to be engrossed by it, mainly thanks to how warm and pleasant the whole game can be. The game is full of these little moments that are really memorable even though nothing important is happening. Or maybe I should say that they are memorable precisely because nothing important is happening. One of my favourites being one that happens at night where the neighbour reads a book to her children and you can simply stand there and listen to the whole thing. But obviously there is more to this game than just standing around, so let's move on to what this title can offer gameplay wise, because that's what you really want to know. Each game day follows more or less the same routine. You wake up, you then watch a short cutscene where everyone does some morning exercises, followed by breakfast, during which you'll often be given some hints at where you should be going. And once that's done, you are free to do whatever you want. The main thing you will be focusing on is finding content for your contribution to the local newspaper, because you want to get in with the girl. This will come quite naturally simply by just walking around, triggering events, and talking to the people you see. Once you find something, you then have the option to change the description slightly. Not that it really changes anything, but hey. After collecting a few articles, you can then exchange them for some pocket money, which you use to mostly buy food and snacks. These snacks are used to restore your stamina, to which you will need to pay attention because if it goes down to 0, you will faint and be sent back to the house. It's really not that big of a setback. You don't need to worry about Shin-chan dying of starvation or anything, because that would be pretty grim for a kid's game. But that's not the only thing you'll be doing around this rural town. The game has a handful of side activities which you can engage in as much or as little as you want. The main ones being the bug catching and fishing. The game has quite a few critters for you to collect, some of them being a bit tricky to catch since they only appear at certain times and locations. Fortunately, if you walk across a bug that you have yet to catch, it will start shining. What is it with games and bug catching? I mean, does anyone actually do that? I tried just now and I definitely look like I came from the town of Asshole. Besides that, there's a very, and I do mean very, basic farming component. You don't even get to choose which seeds you plant. It's all set, your only task is to water and then harvest them. And I'm pretty sure that even if you forget to water them, they won't wither or die on you. But there is an incentive to get your crops since you can exchange them for extra cash. You'll be given a bunch of errands which consist of bringing a certain number of vegetables, fish, or maybe some random herbs you might find on the ground. Besides doing errands, there's also a lot of missions to complete, although these serve more like achievements for the completionists out there rather than anything substantial. And finally, there is a battle minigame that you can play against other kids from town. It's just a simple rock, paper, scissors style turn-based combat where you make dinosaurs fight each other. You can use some cards to change some stats, but that's kind of about it. At least you can collect those cards if you're into that. Look, I know it doesn't sound terribly exciting, and that's mainly because it isn't. Or better said, it's not meant to be exciting. This is the type of game that is supposed to be taken slowly. A big part of this game's charm is just running around and exploring the town, casually coming across new encounters, or simply talking with your neighbours. There are some areas that will be locked at first until you've cleared a certain event. Some of the reasons for those areas being inaccessible can be rather amusing. My favourite one was Shin-chan being too scared after seeing a sign advertising a dental clinic. There's one final thing I want to mention about this game because I feel like it needs to be mentioned, and that is the game's sprint movement. Sprinting is a fairly common mechanic in video games, but have you ever seen a character that gains speed thanks to the sheer power of his buttocks? Yeah, I thought not. The so-called nothing but ass alien is one of Shin-chan's classic moves, and the fact that this game turned it into the sprint animation is absolute genius. Not only that, but the speed at which you go is no relaxed jog. You are basically zooming by at blazing speed. I don't think I've ever encountered such aerodynamic arse cheeks in my life. Maybe Shin-chan should have considered joining the Butt Olympics. But let's leave the arse to the side for the moment and talk about how hard to understand this game might be. First off, I think as far as plot-focused games are, this might be the easiest and best game for those who are in the earliest stages of learning Japanese. It has full furigana support, and the relaxed nature of the game means that you can follow the story without stressing about missing some key information. The only things to consider are that the game is only partially voice acted, and that there may be one or two characters that are a bit harder to understand. Other than that, it should be smooth sailing. That being said, you will still need some basic knowledge of grammar, so I would say if you are around N4, this game might be right up to your level. As for those who don't understand Japanese, well, this might be a harder sell. You can always focus on collecting bugs and fish and just enjoying the atmosphere, but I feel like you'll be getting a shallow and incomplete experience in that regard. But do not lose heart, because if you ask me, I believe the chances of this game being localized are rather high. It's true that Shin-chan might not have the biggest following in most Western countries, and I say most because in Spain it was huge. Where most countries got around 100 or so dubbed episodes, Spain got over 800, as well as theatrical movies and video games that were never translated into English. Fortunately, nowadays, if a game is getting a Western release, English is almost guaranteed, so no need to learn Spanish yet. There is, however, one point regarding the possible localization where I do worry a bit. Shin-chan's humor is well known for its wordplays and puns, so some liberties would need to be taken in order to keep that sense of humor. I know that when people hear about localization changes, worries about censorship or westernization pops up, but without them, this game might end up being a little bit dry. Although, to begin with, there's not that much to censor here. It's all fairly mild, especially when you compare it to how Shin-chan originally was. It's not like those changes would be that hard. In fact, if you've been paying attention to the subtitles that Miguel added, that's exactly what you've been seeing. I just hope they don't rush the translation, if it ever happens. If you don't want to wait for a potential localization and you either just want to download this from the Japanese eShop, that is a big dollop of 6,600 yen, which is almost exactly 60 bucks. There's links below in the description and the pinned comment if you need to buy some Japanese eShop credits. Or there is a physical version which, you can always sell on if there's a whisper of a localization. That's also 60 bucks plus shipping and tax. I put import links below once more where you can get it for yourself, along with our discount code SwitchWatch TV. Yes, if you check out any physical item from PlayAsia, you can get 5% off if you use the code SwitchWatch TV. That's all one word, SwitchWatch TV, for 5% off any physical item from PlayAsia, and it also massively helps support this show at the same time. Overall thoughts. Now remember, we give 3 grades here. Firstly, an opinion on the game itself, regardless of language barriers and such, plus 2 more grades out of 5 that, one is for if you're a Japanese learner, and the second one is if you're an Egypt like myself and don't know any Japanese whatsoever, okay? Firstly, Miguel's personal opinions. It's actually quite hard to give a completely objective verdict, because if you look at its parts individually, it kind of feels insubstantial. You spend most of the time running around doing menial tasks and errands, and the story, while enjoyable on its own, is not really going to win any awards. Yet there's something about it that's so endearing and charming that it's almost impossible not to like. It's palpable how much love and care was poured into it. During my whole playthrough, I was constantly seeing new little details in the background or being caught off guard by some unexpected artistic camera angle, and I think that's what makes this game so special, the feeling of minimalistic exploration compared to the massive and often overwhelming open worlds from big budgeted games. It was just incredibly refreshing here. I'm not going to pretend that this is some sort of masterpiece that every gamer out there needs to play, but it's a title that needs to be celebrated and cherished for everything that it tried to achieve. The game as a whole, a 7.5 out of 10. Moving on to the separate ratings, starting with how import friendly it is for those who are learning Japanese, and I think this may be a really solid pick up. It has full furigana support, a simple story, and relaxed game pacing. The only points against it are that it's only partially voice acted, and that 2 characters may be harder to understand than the rest. A 4 out of 5. As for those who have no knowledge of Japanese, it's perhaps better to wait for a localization. Some gameplay aspects might be doable even if you don't understand what's going on, but I can't guarantee if you're going to find them fun enough. Although I'm willing to bet the devs would be happy to localize this game if they see some interest about it here in the West. So yeah, like for example this video. Share it, view it, like it, comment it, yeah? Wink wink. But yeah, it's a 1 out of 5 for those who don't know any Japanese. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this second episode of Japanese Gems. If you did, let me know. Which games would you like to see next? Thanks to Miguel Marion for writing most of this review, although you may want to blame me for some of the questionable jokes found here. Big thanks to our executive producers Dane Wilkinson, God of Resin, Boombox, Brent McLean, Jonathan Rumor, Santa Tartaruga, Alexander Cato, JCross7776, Elisa, Punky Duster, Michael Del Polito, Cartoon Soren, Jack Severus, Velos, Robotech, and Z, plus you, yes, you watching right now. If you watched all the way through, you are one of the legends who are helping the birth of this series. The longer you watch, the more YouTube likes us and may spread the word about it. And I want to know who you are. If you are one of those legends, leave me a crayon emoji in the comments and I'll give you one back. See what I did there? Check out the first episode along with some digital bargains and physical releases. We'll see you guys over there. Have a good one.